And so it's really important to manage your crew, and that's, you know, with the buddy system, it's not only the skipper, because he's got a lot of things that he's doing. As a fellow crew member, you're empowered to kind of make sure the people around you are able to work properly. And of course, the big deal is you do a maneuver and you lose someone over the side because they didn't speak up and you asked them to do something that was beyond their capability at that particular time. So pay attention to everyone on the boat.
Okay, and so on that note, so local sailing, everyone recognizes white islets. This is a bit of an old photo. I don't know if anyone recognizes the boats, but back when we had a white islets race, smelly on one side. But this is just a little rock, right? Everyone who's been up there knows it's a kilometer or two offshore from Seashell. If you're approaching it from the Straits side, it's kind of hard to pick it up because it doesn't have much of a mark on it, and the lights of Seashell are on the shore behind it, so it's pretty tough to figure out where it is. Okay, this race used to be done on a Saturday, sometimes on a Friday night. So in Australia, there's a little rock called Flinders Islet. Looks sort of like white islets, doesn't have as many sea lions. And it's only a few miles offshore from a little port with lots of lights, and so it's hard to pick it out because of the lights behind it. And anyway, there was an 80-foot carbon maxi doing a Friday night race. Just like white islets. They went up, everybody worked all day Friday, they came down to the club. Friday night they jumped on their boats. The start was at 7 o'clock or something, 6 o'clock. And they raced up the coast, or in Australia's case of Flinders Islet, south. You round the rock in the night, and you sail back. Easy peasy, right? Well, these guys ran the 80-foot maxi right smack bingo into the middle of the rock. And there was a swell running and maybe 20 knots of wind, so it wasn't terrible conditions, but it was a swell. And they pounded the boat to pieces in a matter of minutes. 2 of the crew, the skipper and another crew member, died. 16 people got off the boat literally by basically stepping ashore onto the rock. And the boat completely disintegrated into pieces. So there's a great accident investigation report that lays out, well, how could that happen? And if you think about rounding Bolinas or Entrance or White Islets or any of our rocks, this is what you should be thinking. Okay, so it's a Friday night start, the islet's unmarked, and what happened? Well, the skipper worked all day, he owned the boat, he was a very successful type AAA business person. Worked all day, went down Friday night, jumped on the boat, helmed the boat for 7 hours straight, except for pee breaks. 17 other people on the boat, all sitting on the rail. Nobody else had a job, not even the navigating. He was navigating the boat himself using the chart plotter. So he was fatigued. He only used the chart plotter. And whatever happened, he sailed the boat right smack into the middle of the island. Nobody else noticed it until it was too late. I mean, they had a last minute kind of, call from the bowman to bear away and possibly jibe, but it's too late. And the moment the boat hit, because of the swell, the boat was pounding on the hard rocks. That's exactly what could happen in our area. And they had 2 life rafts. It's a big boat, right? 18 crew, 80 feet. They had 2 life rafts, valise packed down below on top of the keel where they optimized the sailing performance. And once the boat was pounding on the rock, they sent 2 guys down, professional sailors, right? I think 11 or 12 of the people on this crew were full-time professional sailors on various boats. They went down to get the life rafts. The boats, there's water, there's sails, there's life rafts, there's diesel, there's all kinds of stuff. Instantly, they couldn't even find the life rafts. They came back out with no life rafts, and they had to get off the boat in the breaking swells and onto the rock. The 2 people who died, the skipper was the only, at the time the boat hit the island, the skipper, not only had he done what he'd done, he was the only person on the boat not actually wearing his PFD. He had it clipped onto a rail right at the helm station where it'd be easy to grab and put on if he needed it. He ended up in the water and died, and the Sally Gordon, the other crew member who died, she had a harness, a tether was attached to the boat, but the boat ended up with waves breaking over it. She ended up outside the boat, and 2 crew members were trying to pull her back on. The only thing they could grab onto was her harness. And then waves were breaking over, and somewhere in between a couple tries to get her back on the boat and a couple waves breaking over the cockpit and washing them around, all that was left was the harness, right? So this place, and I've sailed right by this, as a bunch of people in the room I know have, this could just as easily be white islets or any of the other little rocks on our coast. See, the amount of time it takes to go from having a great sail to being in the water, with or without a life jacket, with or without a crotch strap, with or without a flare or a signaling device. You know, we all think we're gonna have time, and often you would have time, but not always. Okay, so one message here, or just one message for Straits. Make sure you allow a safe margin at the hazards, particularly roundings. Lee shores, nighttime roundings. You know, we all want to win the race, but more importantly, we want to get the boat around the crew home safely. I think the last thing we have to say here, Stuart, is under pretty well all sailboat races at night, and it's certainly true of Straits, the Racing Rules of Sailing Part 2, which is all the boat-on-boat right-of-way stuff, it's all entirely replaced by collision regs at night. And they have some pretty key things. Stuart?
Really important. You can't be going along the shore and decide to take a person up. You can't port and starboard someone. You have to make sure the windward boat, none of that, keep clear. It's the collision regulations are in effect in the race, and especially at Halibut Bank where it gets really busy, everyone needs to pay attention. If you feel that the other boat isn't doing anything, take early action, take a wide berth around that rock, or the island, or excuse me, the buoy. But make sure under all situations that it's the collision regulations that you're working on, not the rules of sailing. And we find it every time you round a mark at night and all of a sudden a boat's going to overtake it, all of a sudden the boat starts luffing you. None of those rules work. It's not. You need to bear off, let the other boat get by, then come back up onto your course. It's totally different at night. And so, you know, it's getting on tonight. We would like everyone we hope you enjoyed our presentation. But, you know, we talked a little bit about these regulations. They are changing. The good thing is that you don't have to change for Straits race. It's the same regulations we had in effect last year. The great thing is you've got a lot of time to prepare and pay attention to them, because certainly if you're over-prepared, it's not going to hurt you. And it's good to get your crew ready and know that, you know, things are changing in the future. Boat prep, spend some time. Don't show up the night before the race and plan on getting it ready. Remember, if your boat isn't doing anything 3 weeks before the race or 2 weeks before the race, you know, show up with a clipboard and show them what they should be doing. You know, it's a really easy thing to do to empower yourself to kind of help organize other people. And of course, you know, crew prep, have your gear, be rested, make sure that everything on your boat is in good order, and again, help delegate if the skipper hasn't done that. But it's also your choice as a crew member, it's your responsibility. If you don't feel comfortable with how a boat's prepared, you're free to walk off and tell the person why you aren't sailing on his boat, and perhaps the boat will be better prepared for the next time people are going to go out on it. And of course, night sailing, really important that people know what's going on, they feel comfortable on the boat, they know where the safety gear is, people are well rested. And, you know, rely on a buddy system, because everyone's got a different degree of knowledge and a very different degree of anxiety. So if a person is very nervous, hasn't been on a night race before, or the wind's picked up and they haven't been on a windy night race before, total different situation, you know, talk the person through it. And if they've got someone with more knowledge and someone that feels comfortable, that comfortable attitude will probably move over to them and they'll have a way better time. And you know what? We'll fill the room up with twice as many people next time, because we'll have more people out there. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. And just add a couple closing points, a couple people reminded me of or prompted me on. One is, you might be thinking, well, I talked about mentors for Vic-Maui, and you can basically adopt or recruit a mentor for Straits race too, if you haven't done that kind of stuff before, or done a lot of night stuff before. So what would you get out of a mentor? kind of give you an example. So I presume everybody knows what jack lines are, or is going to find out what they are. So jack line's a line you put on the boat that you can clip safety tethers to. When you're rigging the jack line, just as an example, you don't want the jack line to go all the way to the back of the boat. Anyone know why?
So you're not dragged over the stern and
Right.
you've got something to hang on to
Yep.
alongside.
Thank you, Tim. So if the jack line, if you terminate the jack line, let's say at the back cleat on the back corner of the boat, the jack line has some stretch, the tether's 2 meters long, the person goes overboard at the shrouds, their tether allows them to slide all the way along the jack line to the back of the boat, and then they're potentially towed behind the boat where you can't even get your hands on them, and the boat's moving. So you always terminate the jack lines 3, 4, 5 feet in front of the transom of the boat, so the person's not going to be towed behind the boat. Now, if you didn't know that about jack lines, that's the kind of thing that either having a mentor or 2 skippers who are experienced buddying with each other, talking about this kind of stuff, you're going to pick up techniques like that. Second thing, and my closing thing is, so why is doing more than just the bare minimum on safety? Why does that matter? And I just to be a little direct about it, what I always think about is anytime you take a boat out and you go on a race, you go on an overnight passage, you're taking responsibility for the safety of the crew and the boat. And some tragic accident could happen that's completely out of your control. That could happen on the highway too, right? But if you didn't do a good job on your boat of the safety prep, the boat prep and the crew organization, and there was an accident that you could have prevented or that could have been prevented, the test I always give myself is, okay, so I'm going to have to get the boat back to the dock and I have to go knock on someone's door and explain that their loved one's not coming home, right? So if you want the why safety is important, that's why. Because we want everybody going home. We want it to be fun, exciting, it's an adventure, it has some level of intrinsic risk, but nobody doesn't come home because we cut corners or didn't do a decent job of prepping the boat and the crew. That's what makes safety important. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up right there. And now we'll let Ty say any closing words. Stuart and I are going to stay. We have a bunch of show and tell stuff at the table there and at the table here. So if people want to look at specific items of personal gear and ask questions afterwards, we're happy to stay a little while. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for attending tonight. I hope you had found it informative, gentlemen. Tons of detail. Thank you so much. We're not trying to scare you guys here. We're just trying to be really realistic. I think Vancouver, personally speaking, we've got a culture of ripping around the bay and house down quite a bit, and we're really trying to kind of demonstrate that there's a bit of a step change in preparation and experience required to do Straits, to do Swisher. It may not be every race, but there's going to be 10% of the time where you have to have this kind of knowledge. So for you people taking notes and working this into your preparation, good for you. This is a different level of racing than what we traditionally do in the regattas around here. So thank you for attending. You know, Stuart and David have tens of thousands of sea miles and experience, and I'd say decades to be fair, is amount of experience. So they're boiling it all down and sharing it for us. So that's great. From a Straits perspective, that's my dog. From a Straits perspective, registration is now open. The NOR is up. The courses are set. The safety standards are set. If you have any questions regarding that, my contact details are on the website. And we'd be remiss without thanking Navis, our title sponsor, for making these kind of events possible. So a quick round of applause for Navis, if you don't mind. And thanks again. We wish everyone a safe and fun sailing season in 2014. Cheers.
How you doing?